Here's the kitchen floor. Now it's wet and all the bubbles have disappeared. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fill up my bucket with clean water and take a sponge and wipe that up. That's all there is to it. Take a fairly large sponge and we're just gonna rinse over this. I just want you to wipe it so that there's no excess of water anywhere. Okay? We're only going to go over it once. Flip your sponge over a couple times. Keep rinsing it out. Okay? But that's all you're going to do. Now you may think that the floor is still dirty. And why am I not going to rub up anymore? Now you could rinse this whole floor once and then do it again, but I don't usually do that, and here's why. I wipe this, I get the edges, it's still wet, and there's still a thin amount of my Simple Green biodegradable cleaner still on the floor. I'm going to just let that dry. As this dries here, this still will have a tendency of, it's still working, still cleaning this tile, even though there's a little bit of water left on top. And I don't have to go over it any more than that. I'm just going to leave it like that, and I'm going to let that dry. The key is you got to let that dry overnight before you put your sealer on, okay? So you can walk on this after it dries a little bit, but you want it to dry 100% before you put sealer on there. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep dipping like that, and I'm gonna continue wiping. And want to do all the edges. If I see any low spots on the tiles, I do one side of the sponge, and then before I clean it, I can flip it over and do it again, concentrating on each tile as I go. Okay? And just keep doing your floor that way. That's all there is to it. This time as I wipe, I'm just going to wipe off the toe kick and the baseboard as I go with my wet sponge. Get all that dirty excess off of there. And I'll keep wiping the tiles as I go. Flip that over, wipe some more. I'm getting a lot of dirt off this floor. And so when I get about halfway done with this kitchen floor, it's not a very big kitchen floor, but when I get about halfway done, I'll dump the water out and get some clean water. But that's the extent of me wiping off this. I'm not going to go over it anymore for the reason why I explained. So this will make for a fast project, and you're going to get a nice clean floor. When I do the floor and rinse it off, I start from the furthest section and then I work backwards, so that way when I wipe something off I don't have to step back into it. So I started from the front door because I'm not ready to go yet, and then I worked backwards. There's my sponge. Now I'm going to come in off the carpet, then I can go into the bathroom. So always work in one direction and try to stay off of the work that you've already wiped off. Okay, I got the floor all wiped down. Now I'm just going to let that dry. The key to remember is on your sponge, because this is a rough stone floor, the sponge sometimes has a tendency to, little bits of it have a tendency to come off. So when you're wiping off the tiles, make sure you're aware of that, and make sure you keep wiping those little sponge pieces off, picking them up and working backwards, and pretty soon you'll get them all wiped off. And we're going to let this dry now. Got to let this dry overnight, like I said, before we put our sealer on. But in the meanwhile, you can walk on this. Just don't traipse any mud in.